Hello, welcome to our last video for section 2.2 about some business applications. And first I want to define some of these technical terms here because they mean slightly different things in business as they might in everyday life. So first of all, revenue just means money paid to the business. So that's like what the customers pay to the business for whatever the business is offering. The cost of the business is money that the business spends. So that includes wages for the workers, it includes the equipment that the business needs to operate, and all of the other things that a business has to spend money on. Then there's also the profit that the business makes, which is how much money the business owners can take home, which is the revenue, how much money they made, minus the cost that they had to spend for the business. And to break even means you get zero profit. And this whole thing, you can see here, will become zero when the revenue and the cost are equal. Subtracting them cancels each other out. That gives you zero profit. So that's how that works. Now let's look at this example we're going to do. We have the Aquarius Jewelry Company. Take a moment, by the way, here to read it. I've already read it, so I'm just going to start talking about it. So here's the time to pause it. Okay, so anyways, the jewelry company has information about the cost, and the cost includes $200 for setup. So you're going to have to pay that $200 even if you produce zero pendants. But then the $4 is like the materials that it costs to make for each pendant. And they sell for $12 each. So when they sell for $12, that's the revenue that the jewelry company makes. So for part A here, we want to express the cost C of production in terms of the number of pendants. So that means it should be C equals and then something with X in it here, because it should be in terms of X. So let's see, we're going to use the same idea as last time, where there's an initial value of C plus the rate of change. This is the way the equation was written a lot of times in chapter 1, where you start with the initial value, which is what the cost is, even if X is 0. That means even if there are 0 pendants produced, that initial value should be 200. That's the starting cost. But then, every time X increases by 1, every time one more pendant is produced, the cost is going to increase by $4 per pendant. So we're going to write that as 4 times X. So that should be the cost function. Now part B is saying to express the revenue in terms of the number of pendants sold. So we could still do the same idea as before, where there's going to be the initial value plus the rate of change. But for this one, the initial value is going to be how much money is made if X is 0, if you sell 0 pendants. So that's going to be $0 for making 0 pendants. And the rate of change is how much your revenue increases every time one more pendant is sold. And they're sold for $12 each, so that's going to go up by $12 per pendant. So it becomes 12 times X. And you usually don't write 0 plus 12x, usually you just write this as R equals 12x. Okay, so that's the answer to A and B. Now let's graph these on the same set of axes. So to graph it, first I'll clear these other graphs away. We're going to make both the C and the R equal to Y so that we can see both of them on the same set of axes. So C is going to be 200 plus 4 times x. And you can write 4x to stand for 4 times x on a calculator, just like you do with algebra. However, later in life, if you're using Microsoft Excel or some other calculator kind of software, you can't always do this, so you might need to use a times symbol. But for a TI-83, TI-84, 4x means 4 times x. Anyways, the other one is y equals 12x. Now, if we try to graph them like this, you notice there's only one equation, there's only one line you can see, and where's the other line? So, because you can't find where they intersect like this. So we need to change the window to something that will fit everything. Now, the advice here is to use the intercepts of each equation to help you choose a window. Well, let's just think about the y-intercept of the first equation. If you plug in x equals 0 to get the point on the y-axis, you're going to get y equals 200 with this one. So the graph needs to go at least as high as y equals 200 at the top. So that's the y-max setting, and we go to Window, y-max. Let's make that be, well, if you make it be 200, that's just going to be where it starts, but then the c values are going to go up from there. So maybe we should go as high as, I don't know, 400 or something like that, and then see what it looks like from there. We might have to change the window again. Okay, so now when the y-max is 400 here, you can see 200 is where that cost function crosses there, and you can see they still don't intersect on the screen. So we need the right edge to be farther to the right. That's the x max. So I go to Window, x max. Let's try something else like 30 is just a guess. Okay, now you can see where they intersect. It's at this point here. Now to get the coordinates of that point, you could either hit the trace button to get kind of close, to get an estimate. It might not be very precise, but okay, about 24 it looks like. Now let's see if we do second calc and go down to intersect, you can get much more precise of an answer. So I hit enter, and then the first curve is y1 equals 200 plus 4x. I just hit enter. There's the second curve, y2 equals 12x. Hit enter again, and then you can make a guess anywhere. And the answer is 25, which was a little bit more precise. So that means the solution of the system, the value of x that makes both of these y coordinates the same, is 25, 300. And if you wanted to check that, you could. You would plug in 25 for x and make sure that makes r equal to 300 and that makes c equal to 300 as well. So that sounds good. Now what part D was asking is how many pendants must be sold for the Aquarius company to break even on a particular production run. So let's remember that break even means when the cost and the revenue are the same. That number that they can both be equal to is 300, and you get that when you sell 25 pendants. So yeah, so you can tell it from the graph here. When x is 25, the cost is $300 and the revenue is also $300. Now if you make and sell more than 25 pendants, like if you sell 30 pendants, then you're going to be making real profit here because your revenue will be higher than the cost. But if you sell fewer than 25, your revenue is going to be less than the cost, so you're running a deficit, you could call that. You're losing money. Okay, now here is the exercise for you to try at the end of all of these, this section 2.2, it's kind of similar to this last example. So you might, so try it first, but you might need to go back to the video if you get stuck and there's something you're not sure how to do, because it is very similar to that. I do want to see this one worked out on your notes, like all of the ones that are labeled exercise. And if you get stuck, that's okay. If you don't have an answer, that's not the end of the world. You can still get credit for the video notes, but I definitely want to see that you're trying it. But if you do get stuck, it's best if you're watching the videos in the CAS or somewhere where you can get help and ask questions on things like this. All right, thanks for watching. I will see you in class.